to tweet during the webinar or ask your questions that way as well. So I just wanted to start out with a quick overview of Pantheon's mission. Our mission really is to power the world's websites. And we're excited here to, today to talk about Pantheon One for agencies, and specifically our Pantheon Partner Program. So we have a couple of really great speakers that are joining us today. Matt Cheney, who's the co-founder of Pantheon, will be giving us a demo. We'll also have Mike Pirog of Calamuna, who will be talking about Calamuna's experience with Pantheon One for agencies. Before we get into that, I wanted to quickly introduce Khalid, who's in charge of our Pantheon Partner Program here, and he'll give a quick overview of the partner program, and then we'll go into a demonstration.
Good morning, everyone, and anyone on the East Coast. I guess good afternoon. This is Khalid Ibrahimovic. As Linda mentioned, I'm responsible for business development, so everything related to partners here at Pantheon. And just to give you a quick run through as far as what are the benefits of becoming a Pantheon partner, obviously one of them is the subject for today's webinar, Pantheon One for agencies, which we launched last week, and we're really excited to show that to you guys today. Of course, getting on our partner directory listing and having your company's services marketed through our website so that we can connect you directly with those seeking web development services for both Drupal and WordPress, since we now support WordPress as well. Multi-dev being another power tool, power development tool that we're offering to all of our partners, along with Pantheon One for agencies. Depending on the level of commitment and the plan that you subscribe to, the technical and sales training, some of it web-based, some of it is going to be available live and in person. Co-marketing initiatives, these are also based on certain qualifications and criteria, but the idea being that we really want our partners to leverage our marketing assets from those folks such as Linda, who are directly focused on partner marketing. Business development support, that would be someone like myself to help with joint business planning and go-to-market plans. The partner portal, so we now have a Salesforce partner portal available for automating lead registration for our partners, and that also will be dependent on certain qualifications as well. But all of our partners will have, at the very least, an online form to register leads for any enterprise opportunities. And then, of course, being able to host the company's website on Pantheon, as long as you meet a minimum commitment of our silver plan, which is $500 a month in recurring revenue. All of these benefits are outlined in our partner program guide, which can be found on our website. If you go to partners, you'll be able to find this information available. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me directly at khalid@getpantheon.com.
Thank you. So now we're going to go into a demo, and let me give a brief introduction of Matt. So Matt Cheney is a co-founder of Pantheon. He's active in the open source community and is passionate about empowering developers. And he co-founded Pantheon to make it easier for everyone to build, launch, and run websites. Now he's going to take us through a demonstration now of exactly what Pantheon One for agencies is and what it can do.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. As Linda said, my name is Matt Cheney, co-founder of the Pantheons, and here to talk to you about something that's pretty special and I think pretty awesome, which is the Pantheon One for agencies. Pantheon One for agencies is the one dashboard to rule them all, which you're now looking at right now. It was created in the fires of Mordor, and it has a lot of good though to it, and that basically what Pantheon One for agencies is it's a dashboard for your entire organization where you can see all of the sites that your company or organization is working on Pantheon, and then have a lot of ability to do things like automation and bulk updates, and just get general business intelligence and business efficiencies from using the platform. I'll demo most of the features as well, and then we'll transition over to Mr. Michael Pirog to talk a little bit more about the real world, since my sites from the Blues Brothers probably aren't going to be too realistic to anyone. But to get going, I think the sort of high level here for Pantheon One for agencies is you have, as an organization, needs that go way beyond what sort of normal Pantheon is going to do. For those of you who have used Pantheon for a while, as I know Mike has, you end up with a lot of sites on your dashboard, pictures of things that are in various states of development or support, and then it can quickly become sort of unmanageable, not only for your personal account, but for the accounts of all of the employees and team members and coworkers that you're sort of collaborating with on a daily basis. And that one of the things that sort of we got as a lot of feedback as we sort of, developed and magicked up additional things on Pantheon is that folks wanted a sort of, single experience where they could come in, they could see all the sites that they have, they could see all the developers that they have, they could see all the support tickets, all the common code bases and sets and settings to actually have a sort of bird's eye overview of the Pantheon. And that's what Pantheon One for agencies is. And as Hal had mentioned, it's freely available to all of our lovely partners, which are free to join and all of that. So this is a technology that we really expect people who are as organizations use on Pantheon and really make the most out of having their Pantheon experience. So awesome. So to sort of talk through the sort of features here, obviously sites are king here, or queen on the Pantheons. We see a list of all the sites right here that we have on the platform. Any one of these sites is going to click through to sort of the normal dashboard that you're love and familiar with. But that, and as an admin, you have all of those authorities. But the idea here is that, as your site list grows, your needs to figure out sort of what sites are what are also going to grow. And one of the things that we make it really straightforward to do here is to filter these sites. So up here at the top, we have our service level. So you can quickly see, by clicking on Sandbox, which sites are in active development and are not yet live. Or by clicking on the various service levels that might be associated with your account, you can actually see which sites are live and which sites are in production. And that kind of thing is helpful sort of at a glance for a site, site owner or business to be able to make sure that you're sort of, keeping up to date with security updates, as well as just having an understanding of what sites you're hosting and sort of what status they're in. We also have this tagging feature, which is one of our newer additions to the product, and is one of the really awesome things that I think will help organize the actual site work of agencies. Tags are basically for sort of free tag kind of options, where you can sort of click on a couple sites that you sort of think have a common theme, go to tags, hit tags, and to review and add to the product. And what that's going to do is that's going to provide sort of Gmail-like labels for the individual tags, which then can allow you to sort of filter down and say, oh, let me just see the internal projects that I have on the site, or let me see the sites that are sort of actively needing dev, or the sites that we're supporting as a company. And that kind of the functionality is really nice because, as for many of you, I'm sure you're responsible for more than a few sites, and having the ability to sort of internally tag them is going to be really helpful. The examples here of tagging that I've done are just things that I think could be helpful, but one of the sort of things we've done to build flexibility in this is that when you actually do add the tag, you sort of have the ability to provide not only multiple but sort of tags of any sort. So I could see companies or organizations having specific development teams that have their tags, or specific developers who maybe the site she's responsible for are sort of on the tag. And that's something that sort of I think will leave up to organizations to sort of see how they use it. But it works sort of like anything else. You can add them, remove them, and then filter them, which obviously is very powerful. Upstreams are a very important part of the sort of Pantheon One experience. This is something Mike will talk a little more extensively about. But the idea here is that when you're creating new projects on Drupal or WordPress, there's probably a sort of set of common modules, plugins, or configuration that you do every time. That's something that I think, as a sort of agency, maybe you charge for, maybe you don't. But it's certainly not the most fun work, and that it's something that robots and automation can do better. And sort of as per Pantheon sort of philosophy, we want to sort of empower you to have that kind of functionality. So one of the things which I'll mention also a little bit later is that you actually have the ability on Pantheon One for agencies to pre-configure a custom Git upstream that can include the modules and the themes and plugins that you want to have. And then when you actually spin up sites, you can actually have things like a common code base for your agency that will have the modules and single sign-on stuff and anything else that you want. You also have the ability, of course, to like filter by publicly available upstreams. So you could say, just show me my WordPress sites, or just show me my Drupal 7 core sites, or just show me all my Commerce Kickstart sites. That those are all sort of filterable options. And this is something that I think will help people, especially in conjunction with the next bit, which is the code status. One thing that I know is definitely going to be familiar to folks who are responsible for maintaining and updating sites is that you often get emails and sort of notifications about stuff being out of date and needing to update. And one of the things that we on Pantheon One for agencies make really easy is we actually provide a sort of like in-product dashboard to be able to sort of show all the sites that are there and if they need updates or if they don't. So you can see under code status, it says up to date or not updates not yet live. So all of these sites are up to date, fully up to date, and all of these sites are not live yet and need additional loving. And that's really awesome because I can go ahead and say, okay, I got 5 sites that are not yet live. I can go ahead and click on one for an individual site. And this is a common code base that's been set up. So you'll see that there's an update available to the media module, one of the the ironclad Drupal media management solutions. And that it's something where you can sort of see it right here. And it has, similar to Drupal core updates you might be familiar with on Pantheon, it actually has the full update. You can go click through this tab right, the little Git information, and actually see on GitHub the full commit. We have the ability to take a GitHub upstream, hook it into Pantheon, and then we check periodically to see if there's any new updates. If they are, we pose them up here on the dashboard as a one-click update. And actually updating it is as simple as simply hitting apply updates. That's going to go take that latest commit off of the GitHub upstream. It's going to apply it to the site, and it's going to then run it through the sort of standard workflow that we have for all the Pantheon sites. And that's something that is sort of, and Mike will talk a little more about this, I'm sure, but this is something as a sort of agency that's helpful because you can sort of easily, set up those updates, easily go ahead and sort of update each of them. And it's something that can happen without having to have a developer be on the command line doing Git merges or, some sort of a more senior resource doing it. It's really a question of like going through the various options and saying, okay, I'm gonna click buttons and look at test sites and make sure stuff works. And that's something that I think just from an organizational perspective can be very valuable to agencies because you're able to sort of, take a lot of that sort of robotic work of updating code bases and you're really making it sort of a bunch of button clicking and review. And that's something that we even may automate further in the future, but it's something that it's got a reliability to it, it's got a reasonability to it, and that kind of thing. It's really awesome. So we just deployed that update live. Media module is now up to date for Elwood University, which is awesome. So I can go back to the Pantheon One demo, and we can continue on our journey. Okay, under owner, at the bottom, that's the last bit. Each of your sites is going to have individual people who are responsible for them. Those people are available down here, and I can go ahead and see just the sites that Ray, say, is responsible for, or just the sites that Ben and Ray are responsible for. And that's really excellent because it provides the ability to sort of make individuals within your organizations owners of specific stuff, and then you can sort of quickly find them. Within the site dashboard, obviously, we can search for individual site names by keyword. So especially if you have a really long list of sites, being able to find one quickly can be very helpful. You can also do just like general sorts around created dates or upstreams or service levels if you want to group your sites. By clicking here on the checkboxes, you have the ability to, of course, add tags, as I showed earlier, but you also have the ability to, remove sites from your organization, delete sites, as well as, being able to export those site information as a CSV. You see, we just exported out a CSV of the site. And that'll show a lot of extra information beyond what's on here that can just help you for billing purposes or organizational purposes, no problem. We also have, the ability to add new sites to organizations. So if you take over a site and want it part of your organization, you just add the UUID number or the UID to it, and it'll add to your site. There also is this really excellent team tab that'll allow you to add and remove team members. That'll be a little more awesome sort of on the next tab. But the idea here is that, it's really easy if I want to say, okay, for these two sites, go ahead and add someone. I can just type their email address in there, and then it'll actually add them to the organization and to those specific sites. And that's really excellent because if you onboard a new developer, it's really as straightforward as this. Check the list of people who are on board in your organization, add them as an email access, and that was just added to the organization. Copy my email address, go back and say, okay, I'm a new dev, let me filter by things that need dev, click all the sites, hit add team member, and add me to the site. And that's actually going to go add my Pantheon account to those two sites. My SSH key and passwords will now work to access those site resources. It'll show up on my dashboard, and I'll be ready to roll as a developer who's working on these two needs dev active projects. When I'm ready to roll off the project, it's as simple as throwing my email back in, and then I'll actually be removed from those sites. And that this is something for agencies in terms of onboarding and offboarding contractors or new employees that makes it super simple, because you're not required to sort of go into SSH into machines to set up public keys that you then have to get. You have to make sure to remember to remove people from authorized keys or change passwords when people roll off projects. And that this just makes it sort of one-click operations to add and remove people to the organization and to the sites that are part of that organization. And of course, you can add it, add someone to everyone by just using this bulk operation. Our robots are happy to do your work for you.
So Matt, one question that just came in is, can you limit account access to an admin level or less?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
One
of the things that we have rolled out right now is inside of the actual organization, we have a sort of filter between admins of organizations and simple members of organizations. That's something we're probably going to expand as we sort of get more input from folks and sort of see what kind of access levels and roles are helpful. But right now, the idea is that admins are folks that have access to all the sites. They can access all the site dashboards. They can add and remove people. They can, deal with, all the meta management stuff I showed. Individual members can still be part of the organization, which means they can be added to sites. They can spin up common code-based products that are associated with that, and they can file support tickets as well, which is really excellent. And that's something that maybe we'll have some restrictions around people who can push to production or folks who can use multi-dev or something like that in the future. But the idea is that we want to sort of track how your organizations work. We want to be able to say, okay, well, some people are sort of responsible for sysadmins to everything. Some people are not. Let's provide that. And then, let's provide you the ability to sort of easily promote and demote people from those roles as appropriate for your organization. The product section is pretty neat. That's something that when you actually spin up a new site as part of the organization, I go ahead and say, my great site for our webinar. And you pick which organizations it's a part of. It can be a personal site, which is none if you're just working on your own website. But if you're a part of an organization, you're probably going to want to be part of that organization account. You hit create site, and that's actually going to go off and normally do the Pantheon install process. But the idea is that aside from the normal WordPress and Drupal, you also have this common code base option right here, and that when you actually do this deployment, it's going to create an account, a site with your account information sort of set up. That's not going to be based on just Drupal 7 vanilla, but it's going to be based on this custom drops repository. It's actually processing the code and pulling it down. It's taking this information right here. So it's just a copy of Drupal 7 with some modules and ahead and add people to that site as appropriate. and you can sort of get up and running quickly, which is awesome. We also have a support dashboard, which I think Mike can probably demo a bit more because he's had some questions and back and forth with our team. But the idea here is you have this sort of like, panopticon of support tickets where you can see all the tickets that are associated with all of the sites for your organization. That way, it's sort of at a glance, you can see tickets that are still open and need responses, or there are responses waiting to be actioned, or you can also open new tickets, emergency tickets, support tickets, that kind of stuff. And that that's something that, like, we had a lot of requests for as an organization who are like, well, I want to see all my sort of communication with Pantheon. We now give that to you. And then we have a settings page where you can like change your logo and add some information when people spin up sites. But in general, that's and hopefully with some new options in the future. But in general, like Pantheon One for agencies is a sort of dashboard for all of your sites, one dashboard to rule them all, and is the sort of place that we think a lot of organizations and agencies will sort of go to on a daily basis, just sort of see all the sites that are in development. And as we sort of roll out new features and new reporting, it'll become even more powerful. But I think what we have right now is really awesome. It provides those features that I mentioned. And I think obviously it'll be great to hear from Mike around sort of real use cases of this. But hopefully you can all see sort of the power of what we have and can sort of see how yourself can be using this. This, of course, is available now, and simply signing up for our partner program gets you access to all the magic. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Matt. A couple questions that have come in that maybe we can get to right now. On the common code base, can that be on Pantheon instead of GitHub or Bitbucket?
Okay, it needs to be on an external Git repository, so that can be wherever. It's something we could probably set up on Pantheon if you wanted and just have Pantheon connect to Pantheon. But most folks use either Bitbucket or GitHub to manage that because they have a little bit of better collaboration tools and such. Great.
And then as far as supporting Drupal and WordPress, are we planning on adding any other support rather than Drupal and WordPress?
Yeah. I mean, what else would you want? I mean, I would say, right now we're focused on Drupal and WordPress. We think those are very awesome content management systems. They power, collectively over 20% of the web and growing. And they're things that, like, we have a lot of experience in terms of scaling and managing. I think it is definitely possible in the future that we'll roll out a sort of option for custom PHP, something if you just want to have, just run arbitrary code, because our system will handle that pretty well, which could allow other stuff if you want Symfony or Joomla or things like that. But those aren't like on any sort of roadmap to immediately support. We just may open it up for a little more, flexibility to let people run whatever. Of course, if you want to, it's no problem to, sort of just take our, spin up Drupal, uninstall all the code and put your own stuff there. I think we rolled out WordPress only a few weeks ago, but I know Mike's company had a blog post up for like a year and a half about how to run WordPress on Pantheon. So if you're clever, you can do whatever. But in general, right now we're focused on Drupal and WordPress because Drupal and WordPress are best.
Great. And can we use an API to spin up sites remotely?
Yes, great question, actually. So one thing which I didn't cover in the demo, but is definitely relevant to the interests of all the developers, is Pantheon has the command line interface, codenamed Terminus, and that actually provides sort of specific touch points to all of the UI elements, and you have various commands that you can run using Drush from the command line, and all of the sort of organizational stuff, like adding sites for organizations and creating sites and such, are all wired into Terminus. So the operation I did where I spun up a site, that could be done from the command line, and it could be added to the organization from the command line as well. And that's just part of our sort of commitment to not only create a good UI for people to use, but also make sure that you can do it on the command line, either as a developer or on a scripted basis.
Great, thanks. We're going to now go to Mike Pirag of Calamuna, and we'll still have time to answer questions at the end of the webinar. So if there are more questions as we go through, then feel free to submit those in the question box. So let me share my screen again. Okay, so as a quick intro to Mike, he co-founded Calamuna in 2012. He specializes in bringing together science and art to create empowering technology. And we're really excited to have him here to talk about Calamuna's experience with Pantheon One for agencies. Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, Linda. I think Matt did a great kind of cursory overview of the theoretical construct that is Pantheon One for agencies. So I'm gonna take it down a little bit to the ground and talk about what Pantheon One for agencies can really do on a day-to-day basis. They're in the nitty-gritty of actually managing websites and managing support and clients and expectations and all those fun things that we all love. And I'm going to talk to you basically about two major points. There are of course other ones, but I think these are the two big ones for us that I think that I feel most strongly about. The first one is that at Calamuna we really focus on automating a lot of things, similar to Pantheon. And one of the reasons why we do that is we're a smaller organization. We're between 10 and 15 people. So where we can deliver like really high quality websites with a small staff is to provide great automation. And we've done this with lots of things. For example, we have this local development environment, Calabox, which has awesome workflow integration with Pantheon, allows you to spin up sites locally. That saves us a ton of time. We have CalTheme, which is this Bootstrap 3-based theming toolkit that also saves us a ton of time. We just released this distribution called Hot Sauce, which kind of puts those two things together and provides an app server-based kind of infrastructure where you can kind of select different apps that you want and spin up sites and prototypes really quickly. And this also saves a huge amount of time. And this expertise is what allowed us to help ASU build the WebSpark distribution, which is a turnkey distribution that's on Pantheon One that ASU can use to spin up these sites really, really quickly. And all these kinds of things are very much at the core and the ethos of what Calamuna does. At the end of the day, the technology is not as important to us. It's actually delivering results to clients. So automation is key. And we've been using Pantheon One for agencies for quite a while now. Before it was even released, we're kind of giving it a little bit of a trial run. And one of the nice things about it is it's like an inception scenario. Like we've started to automate our own automation, which I think is really cool. So for example, all these sites that we spin up for our clients now, since they're on our custom distribution, Hot Sauce, like Matt was saying before, like whenever there are new releases to Hot Sauce, we bundle in new features. The one-click update, we can go in there, we can deploy all those updates really quickly. And it doesn't require a developer, it doesn't require like, an excessive amount of tickets or project management. It's really easy to do, anyone can jump on it, which is really, really nice. And clients see those updates come in, which is awesome. And another really nice thing about that as well, which saves a ton of time, is, if we fix a bug on one site that has to do with the lower distribution, I mean, we can push those updates out to all of our other sites instantaneously, which is really, really cool. And that can save a lot of time as well. And one of the really nice things about this as well is that one thing that we do and we like to provide for clients is this rapid prototyping. And this can happen really, really quickly with the infrastructure that's in place here. Like it's very easy for our content strategist or our project manager to go in and to load up a site through Pantheon One for agencies and to deploy a set of features. Maybe you want to show a client a responsive website with some carousel features. If for whatever reason you like carousel still, you could do that really, really quickly. It doesn't require any developers. They don't have to waste any of their time. They like to work on hard problems. They don't want to go in and do these robot tasks. Let the robots do it. And that's really, really cool. It saves a lot of time. It makes people more effective, which in the end of the day makes people happy and productive. So there's lots of gains there as well. The second big area is really in just support. And at Calamuna, we have a lot of people on support who are on this very, very low level of support, where we're basically providing these like security updates, module updates for them, and that's basically it. And that's good. I mean, they should definitely stay up to date with those things. It's very important for the long run, right? But it's also a little bit unsatisfying to them as well, because clients understand that these security updates are important, but they also want to see changes to their website. They want real, tangible things that they can do. And it's unfortunate when you have to spend time doing these updates for them and blow through their budget if they're like a low-level support client like that. Not to mention that developers, like, they don't like to go in and click, they don't like to go in and update the code for these things manually. It's very difficult. They'd rather be doing other things, they'd be working on other projects. We'd rather have them working on other projects. So what's really nice is now, we can have anyone go in, a project manager, a content strategist, our office manager, anyone can go in and do the one-click update and deploy these security updates really, really quickly. And the nice thing about that is, one, we save a lot of developer time, but two, it frees up a lot of hours for us where we can actually focus on support tickets for clients that are more meaningful to them. Not that security updates aren't meaningful, but at the end of the day, like, they don't really care too much about that. They want to see real, tangible things, and having a system in place like Pantheon One for agencies where we can do those mundane tasks, robot tasks really quickly, frees up a lot of time for us to focus on more important things, which I think is really nice. The other thing that is really great about this whole situation is, and like I was talking about before a little bit, is developer time is really important. And it's really important to keep developers happy. Like, there's so many things that they do that make them very unhappy. And we all know that. We've all experienced that before. And I think one of the things that makes them the most unhappy is doing tasks over and over again, the same task over and over and over again. It becomes mundane. It's it's not very fun. Like, there's not a lot of excitement. There's little room for growth. All a huge slew of reasons as to why this is bad for developers. It makes them unhappy. When you have unhappy developers, you have an unhappy office, productivity drops, all these things come into play. And I think that this is one of the really big, like, maybe unforeseen or more difficult to quantify areas where Pantheon One for agencies can really provide a lot of value. And that is not only saving those developers time on these mundane tasks where they don't, or having them not have to do them at all, but allowing them to focus on things that they really care about, allowing them to focus on issues that mean something to them, that they're excited about, that they're passionate about. That's where productivity happens. When you have a developer who's engaged in a problem, that's where, like, magic happens. Magic does not happen updating Drupal 7. Magic does not happen, installing the new version of CTools. That's not where magic happens. So I think that's, like, really one of the really big benefits that we've seen at Calamuna is being able to give developers this greater flexibility to explore kind of the spaces that they're interested in a way that helps them learn and grow and prevents them from getting into code malaise, which we've all seen and we've all been there. So I think those are the two really big things at Calamuna that we've discovered with Pantheon One for agencies. They're a little bit more difficult to quantify, but I think that there's real value there, and I think it's pretty obvious to see once you start to get going. And then just, I wanted to go into this a little bit as well, but Matt kind of rolled over it pretty good, which is the one dashboard for them all. It's very awesome. My, like, list of sites on Pantheon, there's like 100 sites. Like, I have to use, like, Chrome, Control F find to see, like, where anything is going on. I can't categorize them. So having that, like, cursory overview with, like, tagging and all that fun stuff is actually just really nice. And being able to manage projects like that, seeing who's working on what, what clients are maybe legacy or not legacy, active support clients, all that stuff is really, really, really useful. And it gives you a real sense of what your organization is doing at any given time. I mean, there's the organizational aspect of it that Matt showed, but there's also kind of just, like, the emotional and spiritual part of it too. Like, this is our business, all here on one page, which is really awesome to see. And you really get a good sense of the progress that you've made as a company, all the things you have going on, and that can be fun to see as well. So I think those are the big things that we've learned about in Calamuna using this thus far, and I think it's a really great product.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate that. Well, we definitely have time for more questions. So there were some more questions, Matt, that came in when you were giving the demo.
Sure.
So if we can address some of those. First of all, do you have an API to deploy instances?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what I mentioned before, the Terminus command line interface will actually deploy new sites, either as sort of from start states like Drupal 7 or your own code base, or importing sites from, tarballs of the individual sites. As part of the import process, it'll prompt you to, or give you a flag to add it to an organization, and then it will be created and will show up on your Pantheon One for agencies dashboard.
Great. And what about, do you limit PHP functions in any way?
Yeah, this is a more general Pantheon question, of course, but we do provide, like, some limits. Like, we're not going to let you run shell exec, for example, and there obviously are memory restraints. But in general, like, we're trying to be a sort of open platform, and so we want you to sort of use PHP the way that PHP, can be used. And so we're not typically restrictive around that. We just have obvious limitations with our containers for security and performance for your site, so you don't go beyond that. And then things like shell exec aren't going to be possible, but everything else should be good to go.
Great. Can I lock parts of my code base from certain users?
Yeah, so that's a great question as well. So in terms of the Pantheon sort of for agencies, products code bases, that's something that especially if you set it up on GitHub or on Bitbucket or something like that, like there's a set of sort of options and controls that you can do there. Typically the pattern we see is that organizations have a sort of upstream, and then they have someone on, say, GitHub who's responsible for managing the pull requests that go into that common code base, and that's something that then sort of is gated in that way. So you don't actually see the updates on the Pantheon platform until the sort of owner of that GitHub repository approves the pull request.
And is a drop essentially a virtual machine?
Yeah, so a drop is sort of an older term we were using called Drupal Runtime Optimized Process, which is something we sort of retired because it was totally confusing. But no, it's absolutely not a virtual machine. Pantheon does not use virtual machines for your sites. That we have a much more modern and I would argue superior architecture where individual resources for your sites, your database, files, and PHP are created using this container, Linux container technology that's been around for a long time. That's getting a lot of prominence with like Google App Engine and Salesforce's Heroku and Twitter's platform and some other stuff. Docker, yeah. Docker is a great open source example of like playing around with this stuff. But the idea is that you're just creating like, you're just using the resources you need to do just PHP or just file systems. You don't have to boot up an entire like install of Linux just to have a database connection. And that's sort of how Pantheon is architected, which offers a ton of benefits in general for the platform, but in the Pantheon for agencies context makes it easy to spin up sites and easy to do some of the provisioning stuff that we demoed.
Great. I can answer the next one around the cost of the partner program. So if you want to go to our website of getpantheon.com/partners/program, you can download our partner program guide, which includes the different referral tiers for our partners and what commitment it is for each of those tiers. The lowest commitment level is $500 a month commitment, and with that you would be listed on our partner directory as well as have access to Pantheon One for agencies. So if you want to go to our website and check that out, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know or Khalid know. I'm linda@getpantheon.com. Okay, next question. Can product owners still handle their own billing?
Oh, great question. And that's something that I actually didn't mention in the demo, but I think is helpful to point out is that one of the sort of benefits of Pantheon One for agencies is that it helps you organize all your sites, but it also allows for the billing details to be sort of established on a per site basis. So some of your sites can be enterprise sites with our specific sort of enterprise agreements. Some can be self-serve things that your customers maybe put in credit cards for. Some sites could be your sort of internal credit cards that pay for it. Some sites will be free as community sites or gifted sites. And then Pantheon One agencies just aggregates all of them into one dashboard, but it sort of leaves the billing details up to a per site basis, which is helpful because each site has its own sort of set of business rules around it that we want to be respectful, to which we want to be respectful.
And next question, what about scripting series of commands? I think this may have to do with auto run.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend to check out Terminus for folks who are interested in automation. I know Mike's crew does a lot of cool stuff with Calabox scripting, Pantheon. We have a lot of folks who will do continuous integration using Terminus and scripting. And then all of the sort of Pantheon for agency stuff you can do some scripting stuff with, which is, to sort of add and remove stuff, which is cool. You can even do the updates, for example, on a scripted basis if you were so inclined. And I think as developers, in your organizations, this is something they'd like to play around with and sort of see, what might be possible for your specific needs.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good question around, so the demo only showed Pantheon sites at level pro or higher. Can Pantheon One dashboard include personal sites as well?
Yeah, the Pantheon One for agencies includes all sites. I just hadn't added any personal sites here. Most organizations tend to do pro and above, but you could definitely have personal sites as well, where one dashboard to rule them all.
On the common code base, we can pull from GitHub, but how does the installation get access to the profile database?
So in terms of the code base, like we deploy the code base that is in that is in the repository. Most of these times it actually includes, like when you pull the code base, the install profile code in Drupal, let's say, will actually sort of create that database as part of the installation process. Pantheon passes all the credentials in, so you have to worry about that, but that the Drupal installer actually, instantiates the database with all of the tables. And then folks will use things like feature modules or install hooks or things like that to actually modify that database to be what they like. For folks that are just looking to sort of just like clone, say, a template site, they'd like to just have this version of the site sort of continually deployed. We, it's not necessarily the best way to do it, but there's it's something that's definitely possible. Typically, what happens is you check in that that database file into your repository, and then you can sort of, when you do an install, you can actually just flash the database that way. It's a little more advanced as an option, and it can be a little more brittle. But in general, like, we'll run whatever code you want, and so if your code wants to flash the database, awesome. If your code wants to install Drupal from scratch and add some modules with config, awesome. It's all up to you.
So does this mean we need to create an install profile?
I would say for the common code base, and maybe Mike can talk a little bit about the one that they have. I would say you can create an install profile if you want, or you can just add 5 modules that you use every time, sort of up to individual use cases. I'd be curious to hear from Mike what Calamuna does for theirs.
Yeah, so at Calamuna, we actually do use an install profile, and most of our workflows are based around that. One of the really nice benefits of this is you can add a lot of really neat magic in install profiles that can help you configure your site the way you want it, and it'll get you really far down the road. Like, you can start on the 10th floor instead of the bottom floor. So when we install Hot Sauce, which is our distribution that we use for almost all of our clients, we have some really great options when it starts off in terms of what we want our theme to look like, the responsive nature of things. Like, we can plug in and install different features that are relevant to specific clients. Like, if we wanted to deploy a blog site, there are different features that we can enable during the installation profile workflow. If we want to add certain components like a carousel, social media, different kinds of widgets, all that can happen during the install profile. And I think that that's really, really nice because it allows, developers don't need to do that. You can kind of spec something out really basic and have a project manager or a content strategist go in and build a prototype really quickly with that installation profile. So I definitely would recommend that approach. But as Matt said, you can just literally put whatever you want in there, and that's good to go as well. If you're going to use, if you're not going to use an installation profile, you might want to have some sort of database that you instantiate as well. Although that's typically not the best way to go about things. That's the workflow that we generally use at Calamuna. And there's a lot of really neat things that have happened in Drupal the last couple of years as well. It's actually really easy to do install profiles now. So, and you could just search Drupal.org for install profile sub-distribution and stuff like that. You'll find some really good help tutorials and stuff on how to do that.
Great. Okay, I think we've gotten to our questions. Alexander had some really great questions, and there was one remaining around memory restraint, but I'm not sure what the question was. So Alexander, if you have a minute to flesh that out a little bit.
Oh, I can jump in there. In general, what Pantheon One for agencies is doing is it's just aggregating the existing sites on Pantheon. So personal sites, business sites, enterprise sites. Each of those sites are going to have specific resource limits or file system limits depending on the kind of plan. And that Pantheon One for agencies just provides that all as an overview. And one of the things that we'll sort of be expanding on, I'm sure, is to provide more of that sort of visibility to the dashboard, show you how much traffic per site, how much resources you're using, and let site owners sort of, create sort of fittingness for the individual plans and stuff on the platform. That's a feature a lot of folks could find valuable and something we want to do. Because what we're trying to do just generally, on Pantheon One for agencies is help organizations be successful. Aside from the stuff I demoed today, there's some stuff on the back end, like the ability to sort of spin up, instead of having .pantheon.com domains for your dev sites, you can have them, dev.site, .yourcompanyname.com as a way to just provide branded URLs. You can put a SSL cert on that for, whatever protection that provides at the moment. We have some ability to sort of automatically add people to your people list if they have an email address at your company, something like that. And then there's a bunch of more features we're talking to folks about and trying to figure out sort of what folks want. And so I would definitely encourage anyone to sort of, tweet us or email us or see us at a Drupal or WordPress event in the future and just, if you're using it, talk about how you're using it. If you have questions, hit us up because we're definitely trying to collect more feedback and figure out what's best. because this is something that obviously lets people be better developers, which is, you know, and better site owners and better companies, which is sort of the goal of the Pantheons. And also, it's something that, you know, we want to sort of hear from people like Mike who are using this, like what stuff they want, and then we can sort of give you what you want, because that's basically all that matters.
Is there a memory limit?
The memory limit's on a per site basis, and you can have as many sites as you like.
Great. Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to Matt and Mike for giving a demonstration, and especially for Mike for coming in and talking about his experience and Kalamuna's experience with Pantheon One for agencies. As a reminder, you can go to our website, getpantheon.com/partner/program to learn more about the partner program and to submit an application to become a partner, or to learn even more about Pantheon One for agencies and the benefits of partnership. So as a reminder, this webinar has been recorded and will be posted on our website later this week that you can reference if there was anything that you missed. So thanks again for joining us, and thanks to Matt and Mike. Have a good day.